write it all caps because it was for several years, it became one of our default moves: intercept, control the center line, control the spine and the torso of your opponent, and then you could sweep or knee or kick or whatever you wanted because you were like right inside. You had impaled their attack.
Right.
And so these guys said to me, "Hey, we really like the spear. What's it mean?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What's it mean?" They go, "Well, wrote it in all blocks. It's an acronym, right?" I go, "No, it was a cool move, so we just said spear." There's no reason. I didn't want you to think, if I did, uppercase, lowercase, I didn't want you to think it was a long, pointy stick. I wanted you to be, this is the spear move. So, so they laughed and they said, "Oh, I thought it was an acronym." Well, I was overseas the next week for another seminar, and I'm sitting there waiting for my course to start, and I write down SPEAR on a whiteboard, and I'd always been talking about startle flinch since I started researching it. So the spontaneous protection part of it came really, really quick. So I wrote spontaneous protection, and then I wrote, looked at it, and I said, okay, the A was aggressive. I wrote aggressive next, and then I wrote retaliation, because we always talked about detect, diffuse, defend. Diffuse, detect and avoid, diffuse and de-escalate, defend. And as I always said, it's push comes to shove. You got to be your own bodyguard. You got to defend yourself, and when you defend yourself, it's got to be with extreme prejudice. It's got to be real fast. You can't apologetically defend yourself. If it's a credible threat, it's a fight.
Right.
So I wrote spontaneous protection, didn't have the E, had aggressive retaliation. Oh, wow, this is cool. Oh, enabling aggressive. So I came up with it. I was in England, or France. I was in France at the time, and I called the guys in Cornell long distance. And the answer phone, I said, "Hey, you guys got a pen? Write this down: spontaneous protection, enabling aggressive retaliation." And they were like, "Wow, that's badass, man!" So they wrote it down. That was cool. Well, very quickly, my seminar career took off, and I started teaching a lot of cops. Well, first police agency that that really looked at it legally, looked at it in terms of use of force, implementation, and policy. Rochester PD. They look at it, and the trainer calls me up and he says, "Hey, dude, I got good news, I got bad news. Good news is we love your stuff. The bad news is we can't use the acronym. Our legal department said you can't have enabling aggressive retaliation as a police agency." And I'm like, "What? That's bullshit." "Yeah." So they were like, "We're going to change the name." I'm like, "What?" So I was so pissed, but he's like, "Don't shoot the messenger." And I thought about that. I went, "Geez, if and it's what I said to you earlier about teaching women. If something in your marketing or presentation scares people away, you can't say to them, 'Oh, you're weak.' You got to say, 'Look, I got to get this good information to them. How do I gain their confidence?'"
Right.
So I thought about it. I sat down and came up with enabling accelerated response. And I realized after that was truly what it was, that it was the scientific study supported by medical research. This is interesting. We're the only self-defense company in the world that has had doctors on 3 different continents participate. Not on my payroll. I didn't say, "Hey, here's a T-shirt. What do you think? Give me a testimonial." They came through our law enforcement courses and vetted the course in terms of our contentions. So kind of that white paper level analysis. And there's something different, about that. And so the spontaneous protection enabling accelerated response is a study of startle flinch as it relates to protecting you. What are the protective and combative applications as the defender? Because there are other systems out there that, I've heard people go, "Blauer says he's the only people that use doctors. We use them too." And then when you look at it, what they're talking about is the location of nerve clusters, or they're looking at good targets. I'm talking about something completely different. I'm talking about, I don't care where a nerve cluster is on you, Mike, if you and I are fighting, because you're going to determine by your behavior how many times I have to hit you, or whether I've got to escalate use of force. And that's a big mistake. When you tell somebody, kick them in the balls, this happens. Punch them in the brachial, this happens. That's a really dangerous thing to tell somebody. It's morally, ethically, and legally dangerous. You may be fighting frickin' Black Knight in the Holy Grail, and you have no idea you know, how many strikes, how many movements, if you're going to have to change locations, if you're going to have to, you know, pick up a table or chair and hit somebody. So when somebody says to me, you know, if you do this move, this happens, I'm like, you have no clue.
Right.
You know? So that's kind of the origin of the spear. I mean, it's taken on its own life. It's you know, we have, you know, programs for military operators, SWAT operators. You know, we've got, you know, Frank Mir. I saw him in Vegas. He was playing with it to inject in his jiu-jitsu approach, showed me a bunch of drills. So it's kind of become like this open source model like CrossFit, where now the athletes are going, hey, have you thought about this for cell extractions? Have you thought about this for, you know, working a clinch? And I'm going, wow. You know, so it's kind of exciting to have, you know, to be part of that.